Hey, this is Tony from Fantasy Quick Hits with your Week 9 waiver wire report. So, really wanted to create a different type of waiver wire video here at Quick Hits, and I'm going to run through waivers, but I want to do it almost like I'm discussing them with a friend. So, we're going to cover players that I like. I'm going to cover some that I don't like, along with a brief explanation as to why. So, let me kick it off right here at the quarterback position. If you're heading into Week 9 and you're looking for a quarterback, it's probably for a 1-week streamer. So here are my top streamers for Week 9. At the top, I have Tua. Did take a step back last week, but look for him to get back on track versus a very, very suspect Houston defense. Miami is really letting him sling it. He threw almost 40 pass attempts versus that Bills D. Waddle looks great. Parker is back. Preston Williams getting healthy. He's my top QB streamer for Week 9. Number 2, Daniel Jones. I always like Jones as a streamer because he gives you a nice floor with his rushing ability. Also, he has a neutral matchup this week against that Raider defense. Watch the injury report on Shepard, but his receivers are starting to get healthy, and I do like him just behind Tua this week. I'm going to put Mike White on here, and nobody saw this guy coming. He looked incredible last week, but I don't think we can expect that type of performance again from him this week. That said, if you're looking for a streamer and Tua and Jones are unavailable, you can certainly do worse than White. It's going up against a neutral matchup with the Colts in Week 9. One other guy I want to throw out there is Taysom Hill with his injury to Jameis Winston. Taysom is working his way back from a concussion, but I do like him a lot in weeks 10, 13, and 14 if your starting quarterback is on bye during one of those weeks. So just kind of be thinking ahead, looking ahead at matchups. He has a nice rushing floor, plus he gets those red zone attempts. That really provides him with that high floor and some solid upside. So let's move on to the running back position. And everyone is going into this week looking to see who's going to replace Derrick Henry. And it seems that Jeremy McNichols is really on top of everyone's ad list. But I want to discuss this just briefly. McNichols is a career receiving back, and he plays on a team that does not create many pass catching opportunities for running backs. Tennessee loves to pound the football, and McNichols just isn't that type of guy. And look, Derrick Henry is one of one. He's a one-of-one type guy. There just isn't anyone else like him in the league. Expecting another running back to replace Henry's production just isn't going to happen. So I would temper my expectations for McNichols. Look for him to kind of really take on more of a pass-catching role, not a primary ball carrier. Adrian Peterson, if anyone's going to replace Henry on this Titans roster, it's AP. And unless the Titans bring in another running back, I would look for AP to get the bulk of the carries. That said, this guy is getting up there in age and not really sure what we can expect from him. So my plan would be to grab one of these two running backs and then immediately try to flip them, trade them to the Henry owner or someone who is running back needy. I want to get into the Eagles running backs, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell. I want to say that you see them all over the place on the waivers, but I'm avoiding this backfield. Do not expect Howard and or Scott to score 2 touchdowns each week. It's going to be difficult to predict moving forward exactly how things will shake out, but I think at the very least we do have a committee backfield. It's also going to be even more complicated when Sanders returns. So if you need a running back streamer and looking here, I think Scott leads the pack, but I still like to lean Gainwell based on prior week's workload. I know we didn't see him utilized much this past week, but he has really been kind of that ball catching running back. And we saw them really rely more on a rushing game in week 8. Don't be surprised if Gainwell bounces back with a multi-target game and a solid PPR streamer in week 9. My priority at the running back position is going to be J.D. McKissic. He is my priority ad, and he is still only rostered, believe it or not, in 55% of leagues. If he's available in your league, again, my top ad at the running back position. He gives you a very, very high floor each week due to his usage in the passing game. He's had 20 receptions over the past 3 games. Plus, it's beginning to look like Washington might be working down Gibson's workload, possibly even shutting him down. He is the most talented back on this roster, one of the most talented players on this team. And with this season look like it's turning into a lost season, they might look to protect their franchise running back. And we kind of see evidence of this now with Patterson getting involved in that running game. I also just briefly want to mention Carlos Hyde. I'm not excited about Hyde, but he was highly involved with this offense in week 8 after J Rob went down. He could be a decent streamer depending on J Rob's status for week 9. It doesn't look like J Rob's injury was a major one, actually looks very minor. And I didn't see anything that would suggest that he'll miss this week's game. Just kind of keep an eye on this, keep an eye on the injury report. And if you do have J Rob, Carlos Hyde might not be a bad streamer for the week. Going on to the receiver position, I think this group provides plenty of options this week. And I want to break them down for us into 2 categories. I want to give you some solid floor guys who have a defined role. And then I want to give you someone who has a very high upside rest of season. So 2 high floor receivers, DeVante Parker and Jarvis Landry. And it doesn't take an expert to see that. Both of these wide receivers will be heavily involved with their respective teams' passing games. If both are healthy, I prefer Parker. However, both come with some risk and both come with fairly lower ceilings. Parker, for one, just cannot stay on the field. While he did post solid target and reception numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if he went down again in the next couple of weeks and missed more time. Like I've said before, the greatest ability is availability, and that is the greatest risk with Parker. Landry, on the other hand, is dependable, but Baker didn't really look good. I think he's going to have issues this season. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get shut down at some point. And this team, Cleveland, really wants to run the football. Plus, Cleveland, they play Vegas, they play Green Bay, and they play Pittsburgh during the fantasy playoffs, and it's not a very, very favorable schedule for Landry going down the stretch. That said, if you need a guy who won't let you down, locked to score as a wide receiver 3 flex role, then one of these guys could really help. High ceiling guy is a guy you've all probably heard a lot about. With the injury to Watkins, Rashod Bateman in Baltimore kind of seized his opportunity, and this guy just looks absolutely fantastic. He's rostered in only 19% of leagues, and he might be the most talented wide receiver on this roster, and Baltimore wants to get him involved. What I like is his production. Week 73 catches, but he turned that into 80 yards, and Baltimore is really looking to involve him all over the field. They are looking at him for short to mid-range passes as well as deeper throws. So he has a very, very high ceiling and the type of guy who can explode onto the fantasy scene in the coming weeks. With Jackson airing out a bit more, I really, really like this guy a lot. I do want to mention a couple of receivers that I'm not touching. You will see them on various sites and waiver wire reports. I'm not touching the Chicago wide receivers. And I'm not touching Jacksonville wide receivers. I know that both Mooney and Agnew are on many waiver ads. I just don't trust Fields. I just don't trust Lawrence. I don't trust these offenses. And just a general rule in fantasy, avoid wide receivers that play on weak offensive teams with rookie quarterbacks and or quarterbacks who are not getting the job done. And I don't like any of the wide receivers on either of these teams. And you might see the occasional game, but you cannot trust these offenses. If you had to get one of them, it would probably be Agnew. I view him as the safest in this slot role in Jacksonville, but just not super excited about him because the ceiling is so low. Another guy I do want to mention you'll see pop up is Jameson Crowder. He had a nice game. Another guy who just can't seem to stay on the field. White was the quarterback and Corey Davis was out. I don't trust Crowder in this offense enough to roster him. I think his ceiling is capped and he's got a low floor as well. Let me move on to the last position here, the tight end position. I've got 2 priority ads at tight end, and those are Logan Thomas and Dawson Knox. In many leagues, Logan Thomas was dropped, and he's eyeing a Week 10 return. I know they're on bye this week, but snatch him now, because when Week 10 comes around, he's looking to jump back in and get back in action. Believe it or not, he is available in 50% of leagues, and he's a top 8 tight end when healthy. Knox is rostered in 65% of leagues, meaning that he is also widely available. And this guy's day to day, so we could actually see him back active this week. I think Week 10 might be more realistic, but I'm going to look for him to pick up where he left off. He's going to have an active role in this offense down the stretch. My two waiver ads outside of Thomas and Knox are Pat Freiermuth and Dan Arnold. These are the two tight ends that are most available in many leagues. Out of the two, I prefer Freiermuth. He was third on his team with snaps, routes run, and in targets. Ben looks his way quite often, loves to throw to his tight end. I like him a lot, rest of season or as a weekly streamer. Arnold also had a nice stat line, but again, do not trust this passing offense, and most of Arnold's production came in garbage time. So I put Freiermuth ahead of Arnold on waivers. And I think that wraps it up. That's it for Week 9. I'll see you guys all again next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.